After the Seahawks traded away Russell Wilson, everyone counted them out and thought they'd maybe win 3 or 4 games at best with their new starting quarterback, Geno Smith. But we all know that's not the case. Geno Smith came out, had an amazing season, and brought the Seahawks to the playoffs. Looking at the NFC West, everyone could probably agree that the 49ers are still the scariest team. Over the past 4 years, they've had an elite defense and have made it to the Super Bowl and 2 conference championships. However, the 49ers quarterback situation could end up being a problem for them, but I would still say that they are the favorites to win the division. Looking at the Rams, I don't think the Rams would do better than the Seahawks or 49ers. Obviously, all these teams are hoping the Rams just continue to implode. Matthew Stafford will be back from injury, but will he be able to win 8, 9, 10 or more games this season? I feel like I could see it happening, but I just don't have a lot of faith in the Rams winning that many games. And then there's the Cardinals. I feel like you could confidently say the Cardinals will most likely finish up last in the NFC West once again. Kyler Murray's injury did hurt them last season, but before he went out, the Cardinals were 3-8, so it wasn't looking good anyway. So focusing in on the Seahawks here, what I'm going to be diving into today is, can Geno Smith lead the Seahawks team to a wild card round spot in the playoffs, to a playoff win, to a deep playoff run, to maybe even win the division, or maybe even make the Super Bowl or win it? The first thing I want to cover is people comparing Geno Smith to other quarterbacks. I saw online multiple people talking about how the Seahawks are making a mistake, and this is the exact same situation that Tennessee was in with Ryan Tannehill. They went on to explain that Tannehill's in Miami for his first 6 seasons in the NFL, and he's terrible. He then comes into Tennessee, plays really well, he goes 7-3, leads his team to a conference championship, and then they sign Tannehill to a huge 4-year contract for a ton of money, and that's where Tennessee messed up because they overlooked Ryan Tannehill's career. Just because Tannehill had a good season his first year in Tennessee doesn't mean that he's now a good quarterback. He sucked for most of his career, and that one good season is an outlier. And then after that, they went on to explain that after Tennessee signed Tannehill to the big contract, Tannehill was terrible and the Titans really messed up. And that's the exact same thing that the Seahawks are doing. Geno Smith has been terrible for most of his career, and he comes into Seattle, has one good season, but people are overlooking the other parts of his career where he was terrible, and the Seahawks should not have signed him because Geno Smith just had an outlier year and he's going to be terrible in Seattle. Now, I don't agree with any of that, but I've seen quite a few different people talking about that, and it just blows me away. First off, with Ryan Tannehill signing with the Titans, he wasn't terrible. If you look, after he went 7-3, he went 11-5, and then 12-5, and this past season 6-6. He wasn't as good, but still the Titans were winning. But Tannehill doesn't get the credit for these wins because it was Derrick Henry. In 2019 and 2020, Derrick Henry had one of the best back-to-back rushing years of almost any running back. He was unstoppable. So I'm sure when the Titans signed Ryan Tannehill, they knew the only reason they were winning wasn't because of Ryan Tannehill. It was because of Derrick Henry. Sure, Tannehill might have had an impact, but not near as much as Derrick Henry just being the best running back of all time. And then looking at Geno Smith, last season out of his 9-year career in the NFL was really his 3rd full season as a starter. I feel like Geno Smith's 2022 season wasn't an outlier because there's nothing for it to be an outlier from. There's such a small collection of data for Geno Smith. To me, it looks like Geno Smith came into the NFL on an okay Jets team, didn't have the best first 2 seasons, got benched, but while he was on the bench, he stayed hungry, was dedicated to getting better, so whenever he got that chance to be a starter like he did in Seattle, he was going to be ready. Additionally, other people are doubting Geno Smith because they say he didn't really end the season that well. He only had a few high points and he sucked in the wild card game. And whenever I hear that, I think to myself, since when are we holding Geno Smith to such a high standard? Geno Smith came into last season after being a backup quarterback for 6 seasons, and no one had any expectations for Seattle. Everyone thought Seattle would win 3 or 4 games, and Seattle was just going to be another one of those rebuilding teams. But then Geno Smith comes out of nowhere, puts up huge numbers, is in the MVP conversation for a little bit, and then just because he's a few okay games, even though the Seattle's still winning, maybe not every single game, but they're still staying around 500. Just because he's not winning every single game and playing like an elite quarterback, people now are like, Geno Smith isn't our guy. And for the wild card game, you're going up against the best defense in the NFL away. No one thought Seattle was going to win that game, and they were up at halftime. I thought Geno Smith played pretty well, maybe not his best outing of the season, but come on, it's the best defense. I think he played well enough for you to be happy with his performance. In the end, my point is that there's no reason to hate or doubt Geno Smith. At the beginning of last season, there was zero expectations for Geno Smith, and now for next season, the expectations are through the roof. Or even halfway through last season, people started to put up their expectations way too high. I think next year for Seattle and Geno Smith will be similar to last season. I don't think Geno Smith is going to be terrible, but I don't think he's going to be an MVP. I think he's going to be right around where he was last year. Hopefully, he's a bit better. And you'd hope he's a bit better because JSN is now going to be paired up with Lockett and Metcalf. The wide receiver core is looking a bit stronger. Walker is coming back into his second year to a revamped running back room. The offensive line is hopefully going to be a bit stronger than it was last season. And regarding Geno Smith getting paid, I feel like the market for finding a strong quarterback has been decreasing and it's not as easy. And Geno Smith was kind of a gem for Seattle. And quarterbacks are now making more money than they've ever made. You're going to have to pay Geno Smith, otherwise he could have gone to multiple other teams, and Seattle's not going to want to risk bringing another quarterback in that doesn't fit their scheme, and it just doesn't work out because not every quarterback is going to work on every team. Geno Smith showed that he can work in Seattle, so Seattle wanted to keep him around. And that brings me to another point about the people comparing Geno Smith to Ryan Tannehill, and after they signed, they're terrible because they just had an outlier good year. That also doesn't make sense to me. Why can't a quarterback go to a new team and then start playing well because they just work better in that scheme, in that environment? Whatever the reason is, I feel like a quarterback can have more success with a different team just because of the play style, not just because they're a bad quarterback and they have a lucky year. I feel like there's not really luck besides Tom Brady. Overall, the 2023 season to me doesn't seem like it's riding on Geno Smith. I feel like the Seahawks defense is where the pressure is going to be on, and that's going to be the decider. Will the Seahawks have a lot of success, a mediocre amount of success, or no success? We saw how terrible the Seahawks defense was last season. The secondary was alright, and the rush defense was non-existent. But the Seahawks have improved their secondary with Witherspoon paired up now with Woolen, which seems like a scary secondary, and hopefully the Seahawks pass rush improves. It seems like it could, but we have yet to see if it works out or not. In the bad games, Geno Smith will still probably be able to lead his offense to 17 points, let's say. And if the Seahawks defense can come up huge and hold a team to under 17 points, that could be a difference in the Seahawks going 13-4 or another 9-8. I'm really excited for the Seahawks upcoming season. There's a chance Geno Smith could play like an MVP. I don't think it's very likely, but if he did come out there and what if he won the MVP or dropped 4,500 yards, back-to-back 4,000 passing yard season, that'd be amazing. I'm interested to see how it'll work out. I just really don't like the people doubting or hating on Geno Smith. He isn't given any reason to doubt him. Even if he comes into the season and goes 0-4 and is terrible, then you can doubt him. But as of now, there's no reason to doubt Geno Smith as being the starting QB and playing at a solid level.